Hello and welcome to the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. I'm Cameron Van den Dungen, and what an exciting night we've got ahead. We've had 4 rounds of the series so far at 2 different events. We move on tonight at Sydney Motorsport Park for rounds 5 and 6 for what is heating up as one of the great sim racing series of 2020. Dylan O'Keefe from Gary Rogers Motorsport in that Renault Megane RS leads by only 8 points from the hard-charging Ben Bargwanna, and his father Jason will be watching on, and I have no doubt in my mind he'll be texting us throughout the course of the evening. But you can't write off John Martin in that Mobil 1 entry out of War Racing with the Honda Civic, and we'll be keeping an eye on him. His race was so good at Mount Panorama last time out and just caught up in some incidents, and that really put him back. But he is well and truly in the hunt for the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. As I said before, I'm Cameron Van den Dungen, and I'll be joined tonight by Lachlan Mansell, one of the voices of sim racing here in Australia, and I'm sure he's champing at the bit to give us all the stats and information ahead of what is an exciting night ahead. For those of you that are new to the Sim Racing Series, well, we've got 3 different sessions tonight. They'll duke it out over the Astron Tech pole position in qualifying up first before we go on to race 1 of the evening and round 5 of the TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. Round 6 will happen later on this evening when we reverse the order from race number 1. It's an exciting format, and we've really enjoyed the racing so far. 7 different events we'll see, so we're getting close to the halfway point as I start to bring Lachlan Mansell in here for qualifying. Lockie, it's been wonderful racing so far, and qualifying really does set the tone.
Good evening to you, Cameron. Good evening, everyone. Great to be back with you for another couple of rounds for the TCR Australia Sim Racing Series presented by Car Sales. And quite appropriate that we're heading to Sydney Motorsport Park because it's an event that will whet our appetite for when the real-life TCR Australia finally kicks off at the beginning of September. Season so far, we've had 2 races at Albert Park, we've had 2 races at Mount Panorama at Bathurst, 3 different race winners. Dylan O'Keefe, the only double race winner so far. Ben Bargwanna and Luke King also taking at race victories. We saw a great drive from Luke King in the VW Golf in the previous round of the series at Bathurst. In terms of qualifying though, it's Ben Bargwanna who has been on top. He's taken the Astron Tech pole position award at both of the events that we've had so far. And that's important, Cameron, because there are series points up for grabs. 10 points awarded to the fastest driver in qualifying.
And it adds up when you're only 8 points between our first and second in the series at the moment. It certainly will add up at the end of the year. What's been interesting as well, Lockie, is how many penalties have been applied in the second race of the evening, which is not unexpected after qualifying sets the grid for race number 1 of the evening. And then we flip the script and send the fast guys to the back. But it really did set John Martin back. He was on for a great race result in the second race at Mount Panorama just a few weeks ago. And you have to be so tidy and so careful. And that really is what Dylan O'Keefe has been able to do. And that is the edge he holds over the rest of the field at the moment. His ability to get through traffic relatively unscathed.
I agree with you on that. Dylan is a very accomplished sim racer, as well as obviously all of his achievements in real life motorsport. And he knows how to stay out of trouble, and a lot of that is through the experience that he's gained in other sim racing series. And that served him well. And like you said, we had in race 1 at Bathurst last week, very, very impressive driving standards. No penalties were handed down. Conversely, race number 2, which features the reverse grid format, a few drivers a little bit, shall we say, enthusiastic or ambitious with some of their passing manoeuvres, and we saw no less than 7 penalties handed down by race control. So once again, same format tonight. The second of our 2 races will feature that reverse grid format. We'll see the fast drivers having to charge their way up through the field.
And those 7 penalties, 3 of them went to Hansen, Lockie, so that was not a good night for him.
No, the Ash Seawood Motorsport driver who actually started on the front row of the grid for that reverse grid race at Mount Panorama, he got a 10-second penalty for violating track limits on 2 separate occasions, so that was 20 seconds worth of penalties for not respecting the track limits, and then you also got a 25-second penalty for contact with Brock Timperley, one of the New Zealand drivers in the field for this TCR Australia Series. We've got Brock Timperley, Rowan Shepherd and Peter Vodanovic flying the flag for the Kiwis.
15 minutes, 56 remaining in qualifying, and it's Dylan O'Keefe, your series leader, out in front. John Martin and Ben Bargwanna. No surprises there, Lockie, that they're at the top of the charts at the moment. Brock Timperley's shown some great speed throughout the series so far, and so has Vodanovic. I'm looking forward to some great racing as they come on throughout the latter part of this series, which has become such a wonderful little exercise in keeping the racing field going. And Lockie, whilst we enjoy the qualifying format at the moment, it's also been good to see a lot of our drivers out in their actual cars. Recently, we've had for HMO Customer Racing, Will Brown's been out and tested. We've also seen John Martin go out and test in his Wall Racing Honda. And if you remember back, Zach Suter wasn't able to compete with us in rounds 3 and 4 of the Sim Racing Series because he was racing up to do some testing, real life testing up at Sydney Motorsport Park. So good to see a number of our drivers being able to change up their sim racing with some real life testing.
Yeah, because while the sim racing side of things is very, very good for racecraft and for, I suppose, filling the drivers' competitive desires, there's still nothing like being behind the wheel of a real-life race car. And before Melbourne went into lockdown, there were some Victorian teams and drivers taking the opportunities to do some testing as well. I know that Ash Seawood Motorsport, who are running the Alfa Romeo for Jay Hansen, they did a couple of days at Winton where we saw Tim Slade and Ben Grice turning some laps in one of the other Ashley Seawood Motorsport Alfa Romeo Giuliettas, as we see John Martin running the right-hand wheels right off the road there on the exit of turn number 1. So he's pushing on hard, John Martin, in this qualifying session. He's less than a tenth of a second slower than Dylan O'Keefe at the moment, so it's seriously tight at the top of the timesheets. No surprises, like you say there, Cam, to see O'Keefe, Martin and Bargwanna the top 3 in the order, because they've been the top 3 qualifiers in all both of the events that we've had so far for this series.
We should also give a shout out at the moment, talking about some of the in real life racing we've been seeing lately. Well done to Will Brown. He was at Sydney Motorsport Park just this weekend gone and managed to get a race win under his belt, up his sleeve in the Super 2/3 series. Takes me back to the old Formula 2/3 when Formula 3 came racing in Australia, Lockie, with the crossover of categories. But wonderful to see Will Brown, who's quick in just about anything he jumps into.
I've always said that the hallmark of a talented racing driver is somebody who's able to jump between all different types of cars and to be quick and competitive immediately, regardless of what type of car they're in. And Will Brown's certainly one of those drivers. We've seen that he's done racing in lots of different categories, successful in Formula Ford, successful in the F4 National Championship, successful in the Toyota 86 Series, which he won as well. He's been a race winner in the Super 2 Series, and he's been a series champion in TCR Australia as well. So no matter whether it's front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder V8, turbocharged, naturally aspirated, or a combination of all of the above, chances are, if you can drive it around a racetrack, Will Brown will be able to drive it very fast.
And I was also listening in to some of the other feed of our drivers in practice earlier on. I think Will Brown's had a major shunt in practice here tonight. There was a lot of laughter going on, and Will suggested he had a stuck throttle, which I think set the whole field off. 12 minutes remaining in qualifying. Remember, they are duking it out for Astron Tech pole position here. Dylan O'Keefe, you've heard from Lockie, he's just so quick in qualifying trim. But you could argue bragging rights so far from qualifying really does go to Ben Bargwanna. He's able to get the job done over one lap. But Dylan O'Keefe, just that consistency with racing and ability to stay out of trouble is what has kept him to the front of the series. John Martin has been one of the impressive drivers in this, but we look further back as well, and I've enjoyed some of the racing we've seen from so many drivers. Luke King really stood out at the end of that Bathurst event last week, a couple of weeks ago, didn't he, Lockie?
He did, and he's been one of the improvers in this series as well, Luke King. So been really enjoying watching his exploits. I know that he puts a massive effort into promoting himself off the track as well as on it, be it real life or virtual racing. So Yeah, Luke King, I think he'll be one to watch tonight because he will get quicker and quicker as the evening's action progresses. Just talking as well, Cameron, you mentioned there about watching some of the practice earlier on. I tuned into the Discord chat feed between the drivers, and I'll tell you what, with some of the comments and the commentary that was going on, we're going to have to be a bit careful because I reckon some of those guys would give us a serious run for our money in the commentary stakes as well.
That's why we convince them that they're better drivers, Lockie, and just keep them out there because we don't want them coming for our ever-precious gigs out here behind a microphone. Ben Bargwanna on screen at the moment. We know Jason Bargwanna was slated to drive that entry at the start of the year. Ben pushed him out of the way and has never given Jason another sniff so far. And Ben Bargwanna on a bit of a lap here, halfway through qualifying. And he still sits in third place, a 132.5, 3/10 off the pace of Dylan O'Keefe. And Lockie, hasn't it been a wonderful time to watch motorsport at the moment? The weekend just gone, I don't think I slept much. I was tuned into every form of motorsport all over the world you could find, and didn't all of them put on a show? Great to see. And I know you've been keeping an eye on the FIA Formula 3 World Championship, Lockie, World Championship, FIA Formula 3 Championship, and Oscar Piastri just showing incredible speed, isn't he? And no matter what the starting position, he just managed to drag himself up onto a podium.
Yeah, no matter what the weather conditions are like as well, because we saw some variable weather conditions at Hungary over the course of the weekend. And the thing that's really impressing me about Oscar Piastri, Cam, is he's got pace, but he's got racecraft as well. So I'm not sure if you saw, but there was a bit of an incident at the start of the first race, which Oscar was able to avoid. He finished second, and then the second race, which is the sprint race, features a top 10 reverse grid race. So he had to start down in ninth, but he was still able to fire his way through into second position on a circuit where overtaking is difficult at the best of times. So a lot of people are saying that Oscar is one of Australia's most promising Formula One prospects at the moment, and based on what he's showing so far, definitely he's got the potential to go all the way.
John Martin now to the top of the timing charts with a 132.27. That gap only a hundredth of a second between himself and Dylan O'Keefe. A wonderful lap so far. Ben Bargwanna still 3/10 away from the speed of those two out in front. But
it's
Lockie,
actually a bit...
I was about to say, Lockie, what I'm interested in is such open wheel talent out there in Australia. I'm excited at the prospects of when we get S5000 up and running. How many could we potentially get back here at the end of the European season to jump into one of our Aussie-bred machines, which have pretty much been developed through Gary Rogers Motorsport. And I know Chris Lambden came up with the concept, but so much of that is Australian-made engineering. So much of it is an Australian beast out there, and S5000 is one of those categories I'm really looking forward to seeing when we go racing in real life.
And of course, S5000 will be one of the categories on the program when real-life racing returns at Sydney Motorsport Park on the first weekend of September, alongside the car sales TCR Australia Series. So thoroughly looking forward to seeing those spectacular and awesome-sounding V8 open wheelers back on the track. Speaking of open wheel talent, John Martin, who's currently on top of the timesheets, has had a lot of experience and success in open wheelers. He was the National Formula Ford champion in Australia in 2006. He had some success overseas in open wheelers. He drove for Team Australia in the A1 Grand Prix series at one stage as well. But the margin at the top of the timesheets, it is seriously tight. 0.009 of a second, 9,000th of a second, all that separate John Martin and Dylan O'Keefe, with 7.25 minutes remaining on the clock.
There is Dylan O'Keefe at the moment, driving around, and he did switch marks. For those of you that are new to the coverage, and this is the first time you're tuning in, he really came to the fore as an Alfa Romeo driver last year, and now has switched marks over to the Renault Megane RS with Gary Rogers Motorsport, and that's probably a good time for us to start giving a few shout-outs out there, Lockie, because we know so many people have been tuning in week on week. I'll give one to one of our Indonesian friends, Bagus, who's been tuning in. He always listens. So hello, Bagus. I hope you're going well in Bali. And there are many, many Australians looking forward to coming and visiting you when restrictions are lifted. And Sel from Gary Rogers Motorsport, we know just how hard she works there, looking after the team and doing a wonderful job on social media. So a big shout out to Sel And Lockie, so many others. Sam Stratton, HMO Customer Racing. I'm sure he's running their Twitch feed at the moment. Sam, I hope you're sleeping comfortably, mate. I know he's just upgraded a bed recently and went and saw one of the best in the business when it comes to helping people find a bed, Lockie.
And Sam is pretty active when it comes to social media as well. I can only imagine who he might have purchased that bed from, Cameron. We'll leave that one for another day. But Sam, I know, very, very passionate about the HMO customer racing operation. And it's worth mentioning as well that last time we had the TCR cars at Sydney Motorsport Park, which was for the very, very first round of their Australian series, if you cast your mind way back to 2019, it was HMO Customer Racing with that Hyundai i30 in the hands of Will Brown that was successful in 2 out of the 3 races that weekend. The other race victory went to Jason Bright in the VW Golf.
I was lucky enough to get a ride on board with Tony D'Alberto at Sydney Motorsport Park, and it had surprisingly more grip than I expected at the time. The brakes are fantastic on these cars. They are a weapon of a vehicle. And Lockie, if you ever get a chance to jump in as a passenger, take it. And I'm sure we will be doing a lot more of it. One of the great things about the Australian Racing Group and, Car Sales TCR Australia and S5000 is the accessibility. And what's really good, talking about accessibility, Lockie, free-to-air TV, how good is the announcement that Big Time Motorsport is back on 7 channels? So 7 Network, great to see with Barrett's spearheading that coverage. Abby Way, one of the rising stars of the 7 Network, she's going to be alongside him as well. And that is what you talk about, access to Big Time Motorsport being back on free-to-air television and on all of the big channels and also across their streaming services as well.
And a star-studded lineup of talent behind the microphone as well for the coverage, including yourself, Cameron Vandendungen, but you'll be accompanied by some very well-credentialed individuals. Richard Crail, of course, who is the voice of so much national-level motorsport right around Australia, including the Bathurst 12-hour. He'll be part of the coverage. Matt Nolte, whose voice is very familiar for fans of supercars and other national motorsport categories, he'll be part of the coverage as well. Greg Rust, an iconic voice of Australian motorsport. You'll be hearing his dulcet tones on the Channel 7 broadcasts as well. And then some very, very talented pit reporters, including Jess Dane, the daughter of Supercars team owner Roland Dane, who's going to be slotting into a reporting role as well.
Yeah, I want to jump on that that comment you just made about Jess Dane coming across. It's fantastic that she's been able to do it. If you get a chance, listen to the Parked Up podcast. They had her on recently, the guys on Parked Up, and Jess talks about her actual experience as a journalist. When she got the news and the announcement, I so obviously sent her a few messages, and she reminded me very quickly that she does have a journalist background. She does have an understanding of this space, and arguably she's more trained than me, Lockie, which would not be a shock to many people listening in. 3 minutes remaining in qualifying, and Dylan O'Keefe sits top of the charts. Johnny Martin and Ben Barguana still the top 3. Tipperley, Vodanovic and King in 4th, 5th and 6th. Jaden Ransley in 7th. Tony D'Alberto in 8th. He's another one of those popular Parked Up podcast members. Rowan Shepherd in 9th. Chelsea Angelo will be hoping for big things from her today in 10th. Will Brown in 11th. Jay Hansen, Zach Suter and Liam McAdam round out your 14 cars that have set times throughout qualifying just now. But with 2.5 minutes remaining, Lockie, let's talk about some of the star-studded lineup, and Matt Nolte and Richard Crail in particular. I know you've worked with both of them over the journey. Wonderful commentators. It's great to see them at the top of their game and going to be out there on the 7 Network. But did you ever see the movie Twins? Remember the original? Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito?
Where are you going with this, Cameron?
I bet they're wondering right now as well. Well, see, everything good and pure and innocent in this world went into Arnold Schwarzenegger in that movie, and everything evil and depraved all went into Danny DeVito. Well, our twins in our world of motorsport commentary are Matt Nolte and Richard Crail, and everything pure and innocent in this world went into Richard Crail, and well, whatever was left went to Matt Nolte with 1:55 remaining in this qualifying session. Dylan O'Keefe, John Martin, Beg Barguana, still your top 3.
I can just see now, Cameron, your phone getting flooded with text messages from both of the people who you've just mentioned in that comment. And I would imagine that at least one side of those text messages is not going to be something that will be able to broadcast on air.
Matt Nolte, one of my very, very good mates, and he'll be sitting back watching from his spa right now. He's always in that spa as John Martin continues to spar with Dylan O'Keefe at the top of the order. 132.18 versus a 132.27. I'll take you back to our last event at Mount Panorama, and Dylan O'Keefe thought he had it sewn up, didn't he, Lockie Mansell? And then right at the end, we saw a wonderful lap put in by Ben Bargwanna.
We did, so it's not over until the checkered flag comes out. And like I said, the margin at the top of the timesheets is minuscule. It's still less than a tenth of a second separating Dylan O'Keefe and John Martin, who we see using all of the road on the exit of turn number 5, right out over that concrete extension into the tarmac runoff area. They'll have to actually be a bit careful about doing that in the race, because if they use too much of the road there, they could actually face a penalty for not adhering to the track limits. But here is John Martin exiting turn number 8, the hairpin now, again using all of the road on the exit, run up into this final sequence of corners. The direction changes at turn 9, and then the double left-handers at turn 10 and 11 that led you back onto the long main straight. Here you take a late apex, you try and get the front of the car straightened up as early as you can so that you can get the power on and minimise the front wheel spin. And he's going to get a bit of a tow here from Liam McAdam, but no, he's decided to abort the lap, John Martin, so that'll be his qualifying session done with the checkered flag out to complete this session.
So Dylan O'Keefe, he looks to have one hand very squarely planted on the Astron Tech pole. Can't see anyone else pipping him from here. So John Martin is through the checkered flag, so is Timperley and Vodanovic. They're not able to get the job done. Still out on a lap though is Dylan O'Keefe. Holds down Astron Tech provisional pole. Ben Bargwanna and Jaden Ransley in 3rd and 4th. I'm not seeing any other movers up and down the order. So Luke King is through, not able to go quicker. Delberto, Shepherd, Angelo Brown is now through, so he won't go any faster, and he'll start out of position number 11 at this point in time. We continue to watch Dylan O'Keefe. The clock's counted down, the checkered flag is out. He could be your Astron Tech pole sitter at the end of this session. We wait for all of the laps to come in. He exits the final turn, downhill. Is he able to go any quicker? It was a 132.189 for Dylan O'Keefe, and he is through, but no quicker. So 132.189, looks like he got the job done. Ben Bargwanna pulls up out on track, so he won't go any faster. That is the end of Astron Tech qualifying, and well done to Dylan O'Keefe. He gets pole and will start round 5 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series tonight here at Sydney Motorsport Park. Great job there. John Martin, well and truly in contention here. They were within thousandths throughout the majority of qualifying. Right behind them, Ben Bargwanna, who we know can race so well in the field. They will start in that qualifying order from here. And Brock Tipperley did a great job. Jaden Ransley also made his way up into the top 4. Vodanovic will be starting in 6th. Luke King in 7th. Tony Delberto happy inside the top 10. And Chelsea Angelo just on that top 10 bubble, Lockie Mansell. And we've got them out on grid getting set for a race start. This will be round 5 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. Do you like anyone from here, Lockie? Am I going to get you to put the commentator's curse on anyone tonight again?
Well, I'd like to see John Martin get a win here. I think he's been there or thereabouts in the first couple of events. We saw that last time out, the front row of the grid, the outside of the front row of the grid was a pretty good place to start. So let's see how John Martin goes.
All right, so you've just put a curse on him, and they've got a nice big drink of Total, one of our wonderful supporters here as well. So great to have them on board. The Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series, and it would be remiss of me not to shout out to all of our good mates over in New Zealand enjoying all of the racing. I'm just keeping an eye on the screen at the moment. Keep an eye out for when those red lights go on. Now, Greg Rust, you mentioned before, he's over in New Zealand watching on. A big hello to Rusty. I hope you've got the tonsils ready, mate. We're going to need a big, big year out of you when we go racing on 7, one of the voices of TCR Racing here in Australia. And he'll have Matt Nolte alongside him in a wonderful big commentary lineup that's been announced by the Channel 7 Network and Australian Racing Group recently. And wonderful comments there from Matt Braid and the team to announce what is a very good lineup, maybe barring one commentator in there, Lockie. I'm sure you'd agree. But we get set now. Dylan O'Keefe, he's been consistent. He leads by 8 points from Ben Bargwanna in the current series. And John Martin, our 3 series contenders, sit at the top of the order here, Lockie. That is exactly what we like to see.
And it's actually now a 10-point lead in favour of Dylan O'Keefe because of the extra 2 points that he gained on Ben Bargwanna as a result of the points awarded in that qualifying session.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The only reason I don't mention it, Lockie, is the amount of penalties that get passed out. I don't know what might have happened out there on track, but you know what? We'll give it to him for now because Dylan O'Keefe's such a clean driver in real life and also in sim racing. He's been enjoying a lot of the racing that we've had here as part of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. Just the standard of driving we've seen. There's a lot of sim racing series where you just don't see it, Lockie. There's so many that just end up in these massive pile-ups down at turn 1. And because I've said that, they're going to have a massive pile-up down at turn 2.
Turn 2 will be one of the action zones to watch out for in these races. It's also one of the prime overtaking opportunities. Turn 6 is another good spot to pass. Also, turn 8, the hairpin, one of the key passing zones on this circuit. So they're the corners to watch out for where moves are potentially going to be made.
So tough car to drive in real life and a tough car to drive around in sim format as well. Remember, they're front-wheel drive. They get very light in the rear, and we're getting closer to a race start here. 7 events we'll go to. 14 rounds is a series. Each race is a round in itself. We've had 4 so far, 2 at Albert Park, 2 at Mount Panorama in Bathurst, and now we've got 2 coming up here. Red light's about to be on. Round 5 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series, all set to go. Dylan O'Keefe on pole, John Martin alongside. And we're away at Sydney Motorsport Park. Round 5, cars making their way down towards the ultra-fast turn 1. It looks like Dylan O'Keefe has the edge on John Martin. Johnny on the outside has to hold on because he'll be to the outside of turn 2 as well. He'll need to slide back in and make sure he covers off from the hard charging what I thought was Ben Bargwanna, but Ben Bargwanna's dropped further back as Jaden Ransley making his way through, and it looks like he's got a good run here. Does he make contact? No, slots in. John Martin holds to the outside. That'll put him in good position as we make our way to the infield here. Lachlan Mansell, good start from all of our TCR drivers.
And a particularly good start from Jaden Ransley to move the HMO Customer Racing Hyundai i30 up inside the top 3. Decent start from Luke King as well. He's already up into 4th position. Bargwanna a bit of a loser there off the start, dropping a couple of spots in that Peugeot 308, and he's going to come under attack from Vodanovic and Timperley, a couple of the Kiwi drivers, one of which has just spun out at turn 6.
That'll really hurt the results and opportunity here. One of our Kiwi drivers, we watched Vodanovic on screen. He had that troubled run. He was leading for so long at Albert Park, only to run it wide at turn 1 there. So we ride on board with Jaden Ransley, just slightly getting into the back there of John Martin, just in front of him in the Wall Racing Honda. Dylan O'Keefe starting to sprint on them here. So we rotate through the order. O'Keefe, Martin, Ransley and Luke King in 4th. Ben Bargwanna, who was 3rd, dropped all the way back to 5th. As we start another lap 2 of 14 here at Sydney Motorsport Park.
John Martin got very wide then coming onto the main straight, just confirming as well that it was Brock Timperley, the driver who we saw rotating on the opening lap at turn 6. And a look at Luke King looking very racy and attacking on the back of Jaden Ransley into the braking zone for turn number 2, and perhaps opening up the door for Ben Bargwanna as well. It's a double apex corner. You have to be very careful to protect your line, both on the way into and on the way out of that corner, to ensure that you don't present an overtaking chance of the car behind.
All settled down now, and again it becomes conservation of tyre. Make sure it survives. Set you up for the back end of this race. So much can unfold throughout the course of our Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. Great to have so many of our Kiwi cousins on board, not only racing but viewing via whatever platform you choose through our Facebook page or YouTube account. With your following, many of our drivers out there on Twitch at the same time. I know so many of you multi-screening around Australia and around the world. So thank you for joining us here. Your leader, Dylan O'Keefe, also your series leader. John Martin sits 3rd in the series, but 2nd out on track at the moment. There's Ben Bargwanna, looking a little bit wooden behind the wheel there, but don't worry about that. This is Sim Racing here. He's back in 5th place at the moment. And no doubt Jason Bargwanna will be watching on over his shoulder. A very proud father there, and he's been guiding hand over the career of Ben so far. Great to see Ben come along. It's Ben setting up for a move here, down towards turn 1. He's got to run on Luke King. Let's stay with this. See if he can get the job done. That's Tony D'Alberto, but now back to Ben Bargwanna. He's got the inside here on Luke King at turn 2. Should be done. Luke King just gives him a nudge. That'll be looked at by our stewards. That was a helping hand. He's pushed Ben Bargwanna wide on the exit of turn 2.
And that's actually caused Bargwanna to drop back a couple of spots because he's fallen back behind Peter Vodanovic as well, and is now falling into the clutches of Chelsea Angelo in the Astron Tech VW Golf. Here comes Angelo. Big move up the inside into turn 5. Bargwanna, though, shuts the door of both cars to get him right out over that exit apron there on that corner. Good to see Chelsea Angelo having a good run. She's moved up to 7th position on the grid after starting just inside the top 10. Been a pretty tough start to the season for Chelsea. Some technical problems at the Grand Prix and then some incidents at Bathurst, but she has a big following on the Twitch game streaming platform, so all of her fans will be tuning in tonight and no doubt cheering her on. So hopefully we'll see Chelsea continuing to have a good run.
Lockie, I have no doubt she pales into comparison to the numbers you're pulling down on your Twitch stream at the moment, as Chelsea Angelo sits in 7th place, chasing down Ben Bargwanna, trying to keep Jay Hansen at bay. And I would imagine that Chelsea Angelo's demographic, exact opposite to your demographic there, ladies man.
Quite possibly. But behind Chelsea Angelo, there's been this really good battle going on the last couple of laps, Cab, between Jay Hance and Tony D'Alberto. And we've seen Will Brown's been involved in that one as well, as Hansen has a massive wide moment out through the gravel trap at turn 1, gets back on just ahead of Liam McAdams, swerves to the left-hand side of the road to try and defend the position. McAdams going to go for the outside, which if he can hang tough there, it'll put him on the inside for turn 3, a bit of a panelled bump between those two cars, and it's Liam McAdam that will gain that spot. So Jay Hansen losing a few positions as a result of that high-speed off-track excursion at the first corner.
A lot more comfortable in a sim setup than in real life down there at turn 1 as Ben Bargwanna puts the move on now. Vodanovic, he's through. Can he maintain that position? Vodanovic fights back, but Ben Bargwanna closes the door and he's now back up into 4th. A bit of work to do to catch up to Jaden Ransley, but we know the speed of Ben Bargwanna should have him there in a couple of laps. Plenty of racing left in this one. It's just about to wind down and start lap 5 of 14, so much more racing to go. And anything that can go wrong in this setup often does. John Martin, he's nearly 2 seconds off the back. It's 1.7 at the moment, but it's bouncing around in the gap between our leader and 2nd place. So he's got to work to catch up because Jaden Ransley now only 1.4 seconds off the back of John Martin.
And Ben Bargwanna, having relieved Peter Vodanovic of that position, needs to put his head down and focus on catching the cars that are ahead of him on the racetrack at the moment. Obviously had that bit of a tangle with Luke King earlier on, which cost him a couple of positions, but we know that Bargwanna's got pace, so now it's head down and focus on catching the cars ahead. Here's the margin between the two race leaders. O'Keefe back to Martin, back to Jaden Ransley sitting back there in position number 3 at the moment. Best lap of the race that we've seen so far, a minute 32.4 recorded by our race leader Dylan O'Keefe.
And he's well clear, isn't he? His fastest time, half a second clear of the next best time, which was John Martin, the only 2 drivers into the 32s as I can see it on our screen. Zach Suter has a lot of work to do. His best lap sitting at a 136.3, so well off the pace at the moment. As we look at 1st and 2nd, there is Dylan O'Keefe, and he has his own sponsor on board there. I'm not sure whether that will be joining him in real life, Lachlan.
I'm not sure if that sponsor's budget is going to quite extend to joining Dylan O'Keefe in real life, but yes, Sim Racing Oz, a sim racing news website focused on the Australian sim racing scene, jumping on to support Dylan O'Keefe for this series aboard the Gary Rogers Motorsport Renault Megane. And you mentioned tyres a couple of laps ago, Cameron, and the Assetto Corsa platform that we're using, it certainly does produce some tyre wear that the drivers are going to have to be mindful of. Having a chat to a few of them before, They reckon it's about 5 laps, and then you start to notice a bit of a drop-off in performance, particularly in a track like Sydney Motorsport Park, where you've got those long corners that really put a lot of load through, in particular the front right-hand tyre on these front-wheel drive cars. So it'll be around this stage of the race where the drivers will start to notice a bit of a drop-off in the tyre performance and the amount of grip through some of the turns.
So we ride on board now with Chelsea Angelo. She's doing a great job tonight. Well and truly got Vodanovic in the sights here. If you look right behind her though, Will Brown coming along with her. So Chelsea Angelo eyeing off a top 5 as they run well and truly beyond the track limits at turn number 5. I've got a message from Sam Stratton before us. His hard charger Will Brown just hip and shoulders Chelsea Angelo out of the way and says, "Thank you very much, I'll take 6th place." Sam Stratton was messaging saying that track limits have seen them just about in Campbelltown as they exit turn 5.
In real life, it's something that we normally see the officials cracking down on, isn't it? There might be a little bit more leniency applied tonight in the virtual world, but Will Brown on an absolute charge at the moment. One of the things that you can never be in any doubt about with Will Brown is that if there's even the sniff of an overtaking opportunity, he will go for it, and he's made up 2 positions in the space of the last half a lap. He got past Chelsea Angelo, and he's just put a move on Peter Vodanovic there coming out of turn 11 as well. So Will Brown already pushing up towards the top 5.
Vodanovic basically handed in that position though by running wide, and we watch now as Vodanovic tries to fight back here, but he's got his own challenges as Chelsea Angelo now looks to put a move on. Covers off, does Peter Vodanovic. So Chelsea Angelo goes to the outside. She's trying to set him up for a run here. Wants to get through and to tack onto the back of Will Brown. Otherwise, she's got Tony D'Alberto coming very quickly into her rearview mirror. She'll need to clear Vodanovic soon, who's really struggling for pace tonight on lap 7 of 14.
This has been a good race so far, Cameron. There's different cars that seem to have different sorts of pace at different stages of the race, and we saw that Vodanovic was quite quick earlier on, but he's falling back into the clutches of a couple of other cars at the moment. Conversely, Will Brown, who didn't qualify particularly well and started a fair way down the grid, he's shown tremendous race pace and he's pushing up towards some of those cars as Angelo goes for a big lunge at turn 8, outbrakes herself, runs wide. Vodanovic slips back past on the inside. And Chelsea won't want to be doing too much of that, because if she tried another move like that, I can tell you that Tony D'Alberto would be right there and ready to capitalise.
I'll tell you what, Lance Stroll would have been proud of that move there from Chelsea Angelo with the big dive bomb, the big lunge up the inside. Wasn't able to get the job done though. And she sets off after Vodanovic again, but now Tony D'Alberto ever closer. So in that rear view mirror as we make our way down to turn 1, he'll loom up. But Chelsea Angelo's got a good run here into turn 1. Vodanovic will cover off. He'll move to the inside now. Or, no, he's not able to. Angelo able to get inside of Vodanovic. She'll give him a little bit of a nudge on the way through just to give herself some room on the exit. And that'll bring Tony D'Alberto in. He's now got a bit of a run. But Vodanovic has to worry about D'Alberto. And that'll free Chelsea Angelo up just to skip away slightly.
Oh, Vodanovic muscling D'Alberto out wide as they reach the bottom of the hill there at turn 4. D'Alberto looking to try and go round the outside into turn number 5. You don't really want to be in that section of the racetrack, but D'Alberto switches back and he'll be well positioned on the inside when they get to turn 6. Vodanovic still wants to fight. D'Alberto is having none of it and muscles his way through, so that's another couple of spots lost there for Peter Vodanovic. I'm just wondering, Cameron, if maybe Vodanovic went a bit too hard too early and took a bit too much life out of those tyres, because he's falling backwards.
He'll need to settle down. He's got a good gap behind him though to Jay Hansen, 2.9 seconds, the gap between those two cars, and just need to tidy up his racing and hopefully just salvage some life out of those tyres over the last part of this race. We're on lap 8 of 14. You're watching the battle there over 6th place. Chelsea Angelo, Tony D'Alberto and Vodanovic up the road. The gap still stable at 1.6 seconds between your leader, Dylan O'Keefe, and John Martin. The gap between second and third, though, now daylight, nearly 5 seconds between the pair, although it's dropping rapidly now to 3.6, 3.7, and hovering at that 4-second mark. John Martin, he's trying to get ever closer to Dylan O'Keefe. He put in his fastest lap just before with a 132.8, and he might have been able to take a 10th out of Dylan O'Keefe, but O'Keefe just so clean, so crisp. He's well and truly looking after these tyres and in control of this race. But we've seen these two battle it out earlier on this year, and there's been some great racing between the two. And John Martin, we know, will not give up till the checkered flag, Lockie.
No, both of these drivers are pushing on hard, and like you say, such has been the relentless performance of the two of them. They've pulled a big margin over the cars behind. Ransley in third, Bargwanna in fourth position. The hard-charging Will Brown up into the top 5 ahead of Chelsea Angelo. Just noticing as well that a couple of cars have come into the pits. Zach Suter earlier on, but also Luke King, who we saw running in the front, running pack earlier on. He's obviously had some sorts of dramas and had to come back into the pits as well. So a couple of drivers with issues, but they will have another chance in the next race, which comes up a bit later on. Here's Ben Bargwanna, the Burson Auto Parts Peugeot 308. And we were talking before about how proactive Sally Parkinson and the team at Gary Rogers Motorsport have been with their social media with promoting this series, Cameron. And I can tell you that Ben Bargwanna, no doubt being ably guided by his dad Jason, he's been very active on social media lately as well, which has been fantastic to see. Oh, mistake from Jaden Ransley, off the road all on his own at turn number 2 and drops out of third position. He had no pressure from behind, but he's made a mistake, and not only does he lose third spot to Bargwanna, but he's also fallen right back into the clutches of his HMO Customer Racing teammate.
So Will Brown sniffs a chance at the top 4 here. Ben Bargwanna has got himself back on the podium at the right end of the race. I think it's a bridge too far for him to catch the leaders, O'Keefe and Martin. But that gap we'll keep an eye on as Will Brown chases down his teammate, his stablemate. Looks like he gives him a little bit of a clip here. Getting a run. Classic bump and run from Will Brown. He loves them. In real life and in sim racing format. Gets a good little run here. That's more than a bump and run. That's called a shunt. And he's pushed his teammate out of the way, and he'll potentially come under the gaze of the stewards at the end of this one for that move, because that move was done as a result of pushing Ransley wide. But nonetheless, Will Brown now up in a 4th.
Still, Jaden Ransley is going to be kicking himself for that mistake at turn 2, because it was completely unforced. He had no immediate pressure from behind. Bargwanna was a good couple of seconds back, and he just fired it off the road all on his own. One of the things about virtual racing, Cameron, is that sometimes it can be quite a challenge to maintain the level of concentration that you need to drive fast and error-free for long periods of time. Even harder in some respects than real life, because you don't have quite as much of the adrenaline factor as you do in real life motorsport. So I wonder if it's just a slight concentration lapse that's caught out Ransley there.
Yeah, an adjustment in the seat. The more I've been doing it lately, Lockie, the more you realise why you want a very comfortable cockpit there. Nice ergonomics. Because spending a few hours in one of those seats that's not fit for purpose can be quite a painful experience.
So watching the HMO customer teammates on screen at the moment, Brown now up to 4th position ahead of Ransley. The margin at the front between O'Keefe and Martin still hovering around that 1.5 seconds. Of course, we emphasise that the results that we give you at the end of this race will be provisional, because just like in real life motorsport, there is race control, there are officials, and they do look at incidents and contacts that's happened between cars or drivers who might have gained an advantage by exceeding track limits. And we have seen in previous rounds of this series that there have been post-race time penalties handed out to drivers post-race.
So we're edging ever closer to the end of round 5 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand. I should add that Sim Racing Series. We're getting ever closer to the halfway point. 7 events we go to throughout the course of this year. We've been to Albert Park, Bathurst. We're now at Sydney Motorsport Park as we ride on board with Tony D'Alberto. Has a look. Not able to get the job done at that point in time. We'll head to Surfers Paradise now. Now I look back up and Tony D'Alberto gets into the side of Chelsea Angelo, and she's having none of it. And he's just about parked up like his podcast there on the exit. Surfers Paradise, Sandown, Adelaide, and then finishing off at Macau, Lockie. It's a good spread of tracks around Australia, and then that nice little tasty morsel in Macau, an event that I would really love to get to in real life.
Really looking forward to seeing these TCR cars on the concrete confines of the Surfers Paradise Street Circuit, and like you say, the Macau circuit has been an iconic motor racing venue for many years, where we've seen a variety of GT and open wheel cars race. It's got the combination of fast flowing corners and some tighter and technical sections, all surrounded by concrete walls. So really looking forward to seeing the TCR cars in action there. It will be a big challenge for all of the drivers to learn that track.
So Lockie, that time, 1.5 seconds as they cross the line between O'Keefe and Martin, one of the closest we've seen so far, with 2 laps remaining though. I don't know if there's enough time there, but yeah, Johnny Martin, he has not given up, has he? And Dylan O'Keefe will be well and truly aware of the splits, well and truly aware of the gaps, and there is no breathing room when you've got John Martin chasing you.
No, Dylan O'Keefe, he's done a good job of managing the margin, but he can't afford to make even the slightest mistake, nor can he afford to ease off the pace, because John Martin, like I said, he's just been keeping that margin between the 2 front runners constant. And again, such has been the error-free but metronomic consistency of these 2 drivers that they've now pulled more than 8 seconds clear of Ben Bargwanna in 3rd position. So it's been a classy drive from both O'Keefe and Martin.
And it's not done just yet. There is John Martin. He's been, as you said, a wonderful driver in open wheel racing, and after that really came back to sports car racing, and I was very happy to see him picked up by Wall Racing to join Car Sales TCR Australia. He's just such a talent, and has been since a kid, when he was plucked out of relative obscurity, I should say, by what was at the time Cam's Rising Star program. But when Motorsport Australia get behind a developmental driver, they really know how to pick him, and John Martin came out, won a state championship first time out, then went on to win the first Rising Star title as we start our last lap, and he's just an outstanding talent, is John Martin. So it's great to see him back racing in Australia, and as a proud Queenslander, I have no doubt he will enjoy all of his time racing when we head up to Surfers Paradise in the next event for the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. There's Dylan O'Keefe though. He's your series leader, 10 points the gap between himself and Ben Bargwanna, and he's going to extend that lead at the end of this race as John Martin's dropping off the back of him. It's been a great drive so far from Dylan O'Keefe. John Martin and he have put on a masterclass of racing out in front. It's all about finishing off the lap though, because this is round 5 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. Only a couple of corners left to go in this one. And John Martin has not taken his foot off the accelerator. That gap still hovering. I thought he was dropping off the back, but still holding steady at about 1.5, 1.6 seconds as we make our way to the infield and head back round for the last couple of corners. A good run through here. And that gap, as you mentioned before, nearly 8 seconds back to Ben Bargwanna. These 2 have been outstanding and really the form drivers of the field throughout. Not long to go now. He's won twice. Now he'll make it 3 wins from 3 events. Dylan O'Keefe wins round 5 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. Ben Bargwanna will come home in 3rd. 2nd place was John Martin. So a great job by those drivers. Dylan O'Keefe, John Martin, Ben Bargwanna and Will Brown. Still a bit of a question mark over that move, which he put on Jaden Ransley to get through into 4th place. So we'll watch and see if he holds on to that position. But an outstanding drive, Lockie Mansell, by Chelsea Angelo, getting herself into the top 6.
Yeah, good to see her having some good battles and making up a few positions throughout that race. On the other hand, Peter Vodanovic probably a bit disappointed because qualified reasonably well, was running up inside the top 5, but got shuffled back a few positions there. And then Liam McAdam and Jay Hansen routing out the top 10 ahead of Brock Timperley, who we saw having a spin at turn 6 on the opening lap. The good news for Brock Timperley and some of those other drivers who finished a bit further down the order is the fact that the next race coming up, which will be round 6, features a reverse grid format, so they'll have the advantage of a much better grid position where the fast drivers like O'Keefe and Martin, they're going to have to come through from the rear of the field. But that was a good race, Cameron. We had some good battles, particularly in the mid-pack, and some good dicing for position.
Lockie, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Whilst from a casual observer, the battles down the order would have been far more interesting from two drivers' perspectives, that of John Martin and Dylan O'Keefe. They never let their foot off the gas at any stage. So for them, from a sim racing driver's perspective, that would have been a thoroughly enjoyable race from the two out in front. But the rest of us got to really enjoy a bit of argy-bargy. As I said before, I think the stewards will be keeping an eye out. I'd be interested to see what Sam Stratton has to say about his two teammates coming, or his two little drivers. And I say little drivers, they are relatively young and quite small in stature, as all of our drivers are. But Sam Stratton might be onto the phone and straight into both of his drivers saying, can you keep it easy? HMO Customer Racing wants to bring some results home. That rounds out our round 5 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. Astron Tech Pole went to Dylan O'Keefe. Race 1 of the evening and round 5 of the series has gone to Dylan O'Keefe. He's now made that 3 race wins so far, or 3 round wins, and he extends that lead in the series. But John Martin and Ben Bargwanna didn't let it get too far ahead, with both of them rounding out the podium. Lockie Mansell, we know we'll be having a chat with Dylan O'Keefe at the end of this one. You tip Johnny Martin. Who are you going to put the curse on in this next race?
Well, I'm actually going to go with Brock Timperley, because I don't really think we got to see the speed that he was capable of in that race after the early spin. We've seen some decent performances from him in the other rounds, and he's going to be starting on the front row of the grid. So I reckon watch out for Brock Timperley in this one. Just a bit of other news as well, Cameron, coming through on social media. Sam Stratton at the HMO Customer Racing team has been busy on Twitter. He's actually just tweeted, if Will Brown finishes this race, can we get a special shout out from the ladies' man, Lockie Mansell? So, Sam, Will, consider this an official shout out.
Oh, wow. Let's have a look at the official results from round 5 of the series, race 1 of the evening. And it was Dylan O'Keefe getting the job done at the top of the order. He's done it so far at Albert Park, Bathurst, Mount Panorama, and he's also now done it at Sydney Motorsport Park. Another race to go is going to come from the back of the grid, but finishing second, John Martin, who's been just getting points haul after points haul, doing his bit to make sure he's well and truly in contention. He'll start alongside Dylan O'Keefe on the back end of the grid. Alongside him, or just in front of them, will be Ben Bargwanna, who's hoping to get a result just ahead of both of those drivers and make sure he puts a dent back into the lead that's being built by Dylan O'Keefe. As we mentioned before, Chelsea Angelo made her way up into the top 6. Will Brown was in 4th with a question mark, and his stablemate right behind him in 5th. Lockie, some wonderful results throughout as we take a splash of Total on board and get set for round 6 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series.
So hearing that we've got a couple of minutes to go before the start of this race, looking forward to seeing how a couple of Kiwi drivers fare off the front row of the grid. Rowan Shepherd and also Brock Timperley, they'll be sharing the front row of the grid. As mentioned, there'll be some very fast drivers coming through from a bit further back in the pack. I think the key to doing well here, Cameron, is going to be to avoid getting caught up in any shenanigans that might go on down at turn number 2. But as we've seen before, if you can get track position early in the reverse grid race and you can get clear track, it does tend to give you a big advantage. So watch out for some of the drivers starting a bit further down the order who maybe aren't necessarily in championship contention to take a few risks early on and try and get some clear track.
Yeah, that is critically important. But if you look at some of the lap times they've done, Lockie, if you get with 1 minute to go until we get this race underway, if Dylan O'Keefe and John Martin get some clear air, either or both, they are way quicker than anyone else. The only 2 drivers into the 32s in that last race. So we know their lap speed is scintillatingly quick. And if they get any clear air and they can get through a few early, those 2 could well find themselves in podium contention very early on in this race, Lockie.
Other thing as well is that Luke King and Zach Suter, because they were both classified as non-finishers in the previous race, they will still have to start at the back of the grid. You have to actually finish the race to be able to take advantage of the reverse grid format. So Shepherd, Timperley, Hansen and Vodanovic, your first 2 rows of the grid. Then McAdam, D'Alberto, Angelo, Ransley, Brown and Bargwanna rounding out the top 10 as we get ready for a start, Cameron.
Round 6 of the Car Sale TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series set to get underway. This is a reverse grid race and the final one of the night. We're away here at Sydney Motorsport Park and it's Jay Hansen, Vodanovic and Liam McAdam up near the front. I should change that order around shortly as Timperley out in front at the moment as we make our way down into turn 1. Normally the reverse grid race ends up in carnage, and if it's going to happen anywhere, it'll happen down here at turn number 2. Shepherd, Timperley, Hansen, Vodanovic make their way in, and oh no, he's been offloaded, the 59. Unfortunately for Timperley, he's way back in the order. As we look now back to the front, and Jay Hansen chasing down Rowan Shepherd in the lead here. Relatively tidy through turn 2, other than that one little incident. Let's see who's been able to make their way up through the order. Chelsea Angelo's in contention here as well. So it's Shepherd in control from Jay Hansen.
Really good start from Chelsea Angelo. She's already pushed up into 4th position, but the commentators curse strikes for Brock Timperley. That was my tip, and he went off the road with probably a bit of assistance there at turn number 2 as we see the HMO customer racing cars swapping positions. That was Will Brown getting ahead of Jane and Ransley at turn 6.
Oh, that was a flip in the background. Was that Liam McAdam that just went over in the background, or was that... We'll keep an eye out on that order. Jay Hansen now leads on my timing charts at the moment. So Hansen, McAdam, Angelo, Vodanovic, Brown. No, we'll see that order shake out very shortly. There is Timperley on screen right now. Good drive. Is that John Martin through? Making his way up through the order. Don't worry about the timing monitor on the left there. It'll start to shake itself out as we cross the line. Hansen, McAdam, Angelo, Vodanovic. Brown has now through as well. We continue to look at Vodanovic there, who is chasing after Will Brown. It's got Jaden Ransley looking for a move round the outside. But Vodanovic holds on, covers off. Ransley not able to go with him, but that's allowing Will Brown just to skip away slightly.
Been a bit going on in the opening lap in a bit of this race. We've had plenty of overtaking manoeuvres and a couple of incidents. Just having a look at the timing order and the scoreboard, which has now corrected, and you'd have to say the big losers there off the opening lap, the cars that started on the front row of the grid, because Brock Timperley's back to 8th position. Rowan Shepherd, even worse, he's gone all the way back to 13th position. So I think he might have been one of the drivers who was involved in an incident, potentially at turn number 8 there, Cameron, on the opening lap, as we've got contact here, an aggressive Will Brown getting into the side of Peter Vodanovic as those cars battle for position. My apologies, that was actually Ransley and Vodanovic making contact. Will Brown's a bit further up the road, but Tony Dalberto trying to hold off Brock Timperley as we say Ransley and Vodanovic still side by side heading up towards turns 10 and 11, the final 2 corners, and it's Vodanovic who gets forced right off the road and is going to drop 3 spots.
The big news from a series point of view is Dylan O'Keefe being caught up in something. He's well and truly off the pace, way back, 2 seconds off Rowan Shepherd in 13th, as we keep an eye on the order changing again as they make their way over the line. From a series point of view, John Martin up into 8th, so this could be a good opportunity for him to get a big points haul. Ben Barguana back in 10th, and Dylan O'Keefe is sitting way back in 13th.
And we saw Peter Vodanovic heading into the pits that time around as well, so possibly some damage for Vodanovic's car. Brock Timperley getting stuck into it with Tony Dalberto through turn 3. Tried to make the move at turn number 2, wasn't quite able to do it. And here comes John Martin down the inside of his teammate, the 2 Wall Racing Honda Civics running side by side through turns 4 and 5. And it's Dalberto who just about stays ahead of his teammate. The privacy Zach Suter involved as well. So the trio of Hondas all running nose to tail. Martin finally gets the job done at turn 6.
Looked like Suter just got into the back of Tony Dalberto slightly there as well, as John Martin now into position number 7, looks ahead to Brock Timperley, and he sets after him, catching up to him so quickly. And he looks on here, John Martin, could be on for a podium so early in this race, and he's been able to get the best of it because Ben Barguana now all the way back in 13th and Dylan O'Keefe still back in 11th. So John Martin, of our series contenders, has the best of it early in round number 6.
Oh, and gets a bit of a tap though from Luke King. Apologies, that's Zach Suter. What happened to Ben Barguana? I just caught it at the top of one of the previous camera shots. It looked like he and Tony D'Alberto had contact heading around Corporate Hill, so both of those drivers falling back to 12th and 13th respectively. As we look at the battle for the lead between Jay Hansen and Liam McAdam. Hansen defending to the inside as they head into the braking zone for turn 2. And while this duo is battling against one another and holding each other up, it is allowing the next two cars behind, Will Brown and Chelsea Angelo, to catch up. So shortly, it's going to be a four-way contest for the race lead here.
So we'll stay with this battle. Out in front, Jay Hansen, the man with all the penalties at the last round at Mount Panorama. Liam McAdam, he's getting a good run here, but they're bringing Will Brown and Chelsea Angelo well and truly into this battle for the lead, and that's Will Brown close enough. So we ride on board now with your race leader. Looking back there at Liam McAdam, and you can see Will Brown, he's well and truly in this battle now. And Chelsea Angelo, she's only 0.8 of a second off the back of them. So Liam McAdam now looking for a position. Jay Hansen driving ultra conservatively. This is almost a replica of what we saw in the second race at Mount Panorama last time out, with Jay Hansen just the cork in the bottle, and Liam McAdam starting to get restless here. And Will Brown into the back of Liam McAdam. So an aggressive Will Brown gets the inside run. McAdam won't take that lying down. He'll give it back to Will Brown as they make their way back onto the straight to start lap 5 of 14.
Well, Jay Hansen, he might have been able to hold off Liam McAdam, but I'm not sure if he's going to have quite that same amount of luck holding out Will Brown, because we know just how feisty Will Brown can be when it comes to setting up overtaking manoeuvres, but he's not done with McAdam yet. McAdam trying to hang around the outside of Will Brown through turn number 1. But you can see Brown very attacking under brakes, and Chelsea Angelo sitting there in 4th position. She's right in contention in this battle too. And also moving up there, Jaden Ransley in 5th position, not too far away either. So it's a freight train of cars in the top 5, only separated by a couple of seconds.
Yeah, but look who's coming behind them. Only 2 seconds off the back of Jaden Ransley's John Martin. So he's through into 6th. And we do right on board now with Chelsea Angelo. She's setting herself up for a good run here. If you look in that rear view mirror behind Chelsea Angelo, the car on screen, backed by Astron Tech, our naming rights to the pole position award, as Chelsea's pushed wide slightly there, but she's through. Up into 3rd place now. Chelsea Angelo through on Liam McAdam. And if he looks in his rearview mirror, Liam McAdam, there'll be Jaden Ransley. And this is what you mentioned before, the aggressive Will Brown. He's managed to bump his way into position now and has the run on Jay Hansen. And Will Brown takes over the lead of this motor race.
Oh, Jay Hansen not giving up without a fight though, gets his elbows out heading through turn number 9, but Will Brown has the track position and elevates the HMO Customer Racing Hyundai i30 to the front of the field. What he needs to do now, put his head down and take advantage of the fact that he's got clear track ahead.
That gap, for those of you following along, of John Martin in 6, only 1.8 seconds off the back. Just keep an eye on that as we shake it out. 1.9 at the stripe from Jaden Ransley. So he's well and truly in the hunt for a top 5 here, particularly if a few of our drivers up the order just start to push them back. And when I say that, I'm talking about the drivers you're seeing on screen here. Jaden Ransley being held up here by Liam McAdam, and that is bringing John Martin well and truly into contention. The gap now only 1.6 seconds between them. Keep an eye on the series battle. Dylan O'Keefe back in 11th, Ben Barguana in 12th. So this is all about John Martin when you think about the series.
Having a look at the lap times that are being achieved by the drivers at the moment, and it is John Martin, 1 minute 33.1, who has set the fastest lap among the top 6 runners. The actual fastest lap overall, though, 1 minute 32.9, which has been recorded by Dylan O'Keefe down in 11th position. So O'Keefe still has pace, but he doesn't have any track position, and he's a long, long way behind all of our race-leading contenders at the moment, as we see that Will Brown, having got to the lead, just starting to skip away. He's opened up about a 1 second margin over Jay Hansen in the Ashley Seawood Motorsport Alfa Romeo Giulietta.
Jay Hansen, with that defensive driving we've seen, will really be helping Will Brown as we approach the halfway point now of round 6 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. Chelsea Angelo, she's on the podium as it stands at the halfway point. Question mark is, can she hold on to this and maybe even move up through the order? I think there's still a couple of question marks on Will Brown at the moment. He's driven so well, so aggressively. It's a hallmark of the driver he is. We really enjoy his driving style and his outright speed in anything he drives. And that is what HMO Customer Racing love about their inaugural car sales TCR Australian champion. Will Brown, he's looking forward to getting out there in real life in his Hyundai. So he'll be enjoying that. Jay Hansen now in second place. He's able to have a bit of breathing room there from Chelsea Angelo, who's got Liam McAdam running wide on the exit there. That'll bring Jaden Ransley in, and look at that, John Martin ever closer again.
So it's all just starting to compress up a bit, and it seems like some of the drivers do have different strengths and weaknesses in different parts of the racetrack. Some drivers do seem to be a bit better in some corners than others, but pretty much everybody has to keep it absolutely mistake-free at the moment, because even the slightest error, you are going to find yourself shuffled back multiple spots in the blink of an eye.
Liam McAdam has a run on Chelsea Angelo here. She's got the inside line though, but he's going to push, he's going to lean on her. She has to give enough racing room there. McAdam into the side of Chelsea Angelo. He's set up nicely here. It'll be a drag race. Ooh, they're into each other as they make their way onto the front straight here.
And John Martin right there now, isn't he? He's caught right onto the tail of those cars, and he's in a bit of a tricky position at the moment. Do I go left? Do I go right? I can't go over them. I can't go under them. I have to try and go through them. That's the situation for John Martin sitting there behind Chelsea Angelo at the moment. Look at this, ducking and weaving left and right. And it's McAdam who just gets ahead of Ransley. Martin to the outside of Angelo, not quite able to make the move through there. McAdam and Ransley still side by side as they head through turn number 3. And that battle is not going to be resolved until they get to the bottom of the hill. Angelo looking to make it 3 wide. Still door to door. McAdam gives Ransley a serve. He's off the road. Angelo will sneak back ahead of the Hyundai.
And you just get the feeling that John Martin knew that was about to happen. He was quite cautious heading into turn 2 and just thought about the race, thought about the points haul here, and knows there's plenty of racing still left in round 6. So he's now up into the top 5 is John Martin, and he has an opportunity to get himself up onto the podium whilst his 2 series rivals sit a long way back down the order, although Dylan O'Keefe's been able to get himself up into the top 9 now. But Ben Bargwanna, who sits second in the series, is way back in 12th place. So big opportunity here for John Martin if he can make his way through. He looks now to the back of Chelsea Angelo. That's position number 4 he's going for, and just in front of him, Liam McAdam, or in front of her, I should say, Liam McAdam, who sits in 3rd.
This fierce squabble, it's also invited Luke King and Brock Timperley in to catch up as well. So the 7th and 8th place cars now becoming part of this contest as well. We've got 6 laps to go. If anything, all of this has worked to the advantage of Jay Hansen in 2nd position. He's been able to pull well clear of this massive gaggle of cars that are battling for 3rd position, as we see John Martin down the inside, deep under brakes. Might almost get 2 spots here. He'll get ahead of Chelsea Angelo. He'll be side by side with Liam McAdam. And there we go. John Martin is that position 3 it is. He's grabbed 2 spots in the space of 1 corner. So John Martin, a big, bold, opportunistic move at turn number 2, and it's paid off because he's up to 3rd and he's got some clear track ahead to the next car.
Yeah, it was a good move there by John Martin. He just used his hip and shoulders to move Liam McAdam out of the way. He was alongside though, so it was well within the rules as I see it. But we'll see what the stewards have to say at the end of this one. But John Martin now onto the podium. 2.9 or 3 seconds now, the gap between himself and Jay Hansen. And there's enough time in it, Lockie. We know he's got the speed in it, as we see Chelsea Angelo having a bit of a battle there again with King, who is through, or is he not getting it done just yet? Timperley also alongside, and now King looks for another move on Chelsea Angelo.
Oh, just wondering if maybe Chelsea's used her tyres up a bit too hard with all of that dicing, because she's fallen back now from Jaden Ransley and she's right in the clutches of Luke King and Brock Timperley. So Chelsea, she's been on the attack for so much of this race. She's now going to have to switch her focus to defence with 5 laps remaining.
It's getting a message through that Tony D'Alberto has had a technical problem, so he promises it's not a rage quit. And sim racers know exactly what I'm talking about, that one. But no, he's had, unfortunately, that's why Tony D'Alberto is not here. one of the Wall Racing Hondas and also an integral member of the Parked Up podcast. Fortunately, he is parked up in his living room right now and will be taking no further part in this race. Lap 10 of 14. Will Brown from Jay Hansen and John Martin, your top three. Liam McAdam in fourth. Jaden Ransley fifth. Chelsea Angelo in a huge battle with Luke King. And Dylan O'Keefe now all the way up to eighth.
Yes, and Dylan O'Keefe, having finally cleared the cars of Rowan Shepherd and Zach Soutar, which took quite a few laps, is now showing pretty decent pace and rapidly starting to catch up to the next group of cars ahead. So it wasn't looking too good for Dylan O'Keefe earlier on, but he needs to make up as many positions as he can with the championship situation being what it is. Every point that he can score is very valuable, especially when you consider that one of his major title rivals, John Martin, is on target for his second podium finish of the night.
So this is Dylan O'Keefe, and he's salvaging as many points as he can. And this battle that's up the road from him with King and Angelo, that's bringing him back into contention for a good points haul here. We know he's speed, quickest man out there. He had the Astron Tech pole position. He won the first race of the evening, and we know his speed is unrelenting in this sim racing series throughout. So Dylan O'Keefe, don't write him off here for a potential top five.
Jaden Ransley just ahead of Liam McAdam there. And there's Chelsea Angelo and Luke King, the next cars. And they're a bit over a second ahead of Dylan O'Keefe. Out in front, Will Brown's managed to extend his lead out to 4 seconds over Jay Hansen. So be interesting, wouldn't it, if Will Brown was to get a race win tonight, because he'd become the first driver to taste success on both the sim track and on the real life racing circuit at Sydney Motorsport Park in a TCR car.
I really don't want to know what Will Brown's podium celebrations in his own house would be, though. He's an interesting character at the best of times, and character, I use that term with a great deal of affection. He's a wonderful character in Australian motorsport, and no doubt the scenes will be wild at the Brown house.
Yeah, probably a good thing, Cameron, that we don't get to actually see those podium celebrations, because I can only imagine what they would be like. Jay Hansen, this has been a really good drive from him as well. Let's not take any of the shine away from this performance from Jay Hansen, because he was under a lot of pressure for a long time, but running in a very solid second position at the moment, was able to withstand all of those attacks, and eventually was actually able to pull away from the cars behind. However, he does have a very speedy John Martin coming up quite rapidly behind him.
I was just about to reference that, Lockie. 1.3 seconds the gap at the stripe between John Martin and Jay Hansen, and we've still got 3 laps remaining in this one. There's Luke King on screen. If he looks back though, Luke King, he'll find behind him a hard-charging Renault Megane RS of Dylan O'Keefe, your current series leader, and there is Dylan, well and truly now under the rear wing of Luke King, and this battle between King and Angelo is going to bring him right into it. McAdam able to get away from them, break that elastic band, and he now finds himself sitting in a comfortable 5th position with a gap of about 1.3 seconds up the road to Jaden Ransley. Dylan O'Keefe waiting for the right moment to pounce. Lap 12 or 14. He'll wait, he'll make the right calculating decision. That's one hallmark of Dylan O'Keefe's driving style, and that is to go with the least risky move and make sure that he gets through, which is why he's able to continually bring home points regardless of how bad the start of the race might have been for him.
Here he comes down the inside of Luke King, heading into turn number 8. Luke King sees him coming and gives him space, so that was a surgical precision move from Dylan O'Keefe. So that's another spot gained for Gary Rogers Motorsport Renault driver. He's up to 7th position, and if you remember last year, Cam, it was Greg Rust, I think, who spotted the similarity between Dylan O'Keefe and Peter Parker from Spider-Man. And I definitely reckon in terms of the cool, calm and collected approaches with which both of those superheroes approach their craft, there are more than one similarity between the two of them.
So there's John Martin. Look at this, right up onto the back of Jay Hansen now. You don't worry about the timing. It's all about track position. So lap 13 of 14, and John Martin wants the extra points. He knows Dylan O'Keefe's coming. He knows Dylan O'Keefe's having a run here on 6. So it's about points haul in the series. He won't be able to get to Will Brown based on the time gap between first and second, but second is a reality here. For John Martin, from all the way off the back row at the start of this race, he now has a run on second position. Will Brown, nearly 5 seconds up the road from these two. Hanson, we know how defensive he can be. We know how much pressure he put up with early on in this race. John Martin, though, so quick over one lap here, and he's kept the car underneath him. He's done well to get through so much traffic. Looks to the outside. Hanson has it parked. So John Martin lives to fight another day, and he looks for the opportunity to line up Hanson. I wonder, Lockie, if he's setting this one up for a move down at turn 2.
Well, might look to try and do the switchback for the better run onto the straight at turn 11, but you can see there Jay Hanson just slowing it up at the apex point to make sure that John Martin can't get on the accelerator as early as he would like. And look at Jay Hanson moving it straight across to the left-hand side of the racetrack on the main straight. He says to John Martin, if you want this position, you're going to have to go the long way round. And he squeezes Martin to the outside through turn number 1, the fastest corner on the racetrack, into the braking zone at turn number 2, and it's Hanson who still stays ahead, and you can see just how rapidly Jaden Ransley's closing in, and John Martin getting a bit frustrated. Gives the Alfa Romeo a bit of a bump coming out of turn number 2 just to let Hanson know that he's there and would very much like to get past.
Like drop-shotting your wife at a crucial match in a crucial point of a tennis match. That was very unsocial of Jay Hanson down towards turn 1 on John Martin, and John Martin let him know about it with a little bump as they made their way into turn 2. And Lockie, a slight tip for young players: never drop shot your wife at a critical point in a social tennis match. It never ends well. As Will Brown, nearly 7 seconds up the road from Jay Hanson and John Martin. I'm not sure John Martin's going to be able to get through here on Jay Hanson, but it's all about Will Brown. He won at Sydney Motorsport Park on Saturday in Super 2. And here we are as part of round 6 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. Put your hands together. The young charger, Will Brown, wins at Sydney Motorsport Park. A wonderful effort for the superstar young driver as part of HMO Customer Racing. He was our inaugural champion, and we look back now as John Martin's got through on Jay Hanson as well. Jay Hanson holds on to 3rd, and well done, John Martin. Now we'll keep an eye on Dylan O'Keefe. Did he hold down 5th place? I think he might have at the end of that one. Dylan O'Keefe 6th on my timing charts. We'll see the official results. Yep, 6th for Dylan O'Keefe. So that was a good response from him. But how about Will Brown, Lockie Mansell?
Yeah, first race victory for him in the TCR Australia Sim Racing Series, and really, really good drive from him as well to work his way through to the front of the field with the right mix of aggression and self-discipline. So really, really good performance. And as I mentioned before, he was a race winner in real life in the TCR round at Sydney Motorsport Park last year, so he can now claim success in both the real life and the virtual worlds in the HMO Customer Racing Hyundai i30 at the Western Sydney venue.
But the official result, I'm pretty sure we saw John Martin in 2nd. It says Jay Hanson still up on the charts at the moment, but I thought John Martin might have got through on him, but we'll keep an eye out. Now, this is after the checkered flag here. It's Will Brown just enjoying himself out on track, Lockie Mansell. What a great event that was. Round 6 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series. And a big thank you to our supporters as well in Astron Tech and Total. Some wonderful racing throughout. 2 different race winners again. And that's 6 of our rounds out of a 14 race championship, Lockie. It's been great so far.
It has. That's probably some of the best racing I reckon we've seen. The battles in the mid-pack in race number 1 were very entertaining, and again we had action right up and down the field all the way through the second race as well. So really well done to all of the drivers for some great entertaining motorsport.
So the official results then in that race was Brown getting the job done. I'm pretty sure Martin got through on Hanson at the end of that one, and that is your podium. We'll get a chance to catch up with both of our race winners very shortly. The first one will be the man that Greg Russ did nickname Spider-Man, but he's been the outstanding driver in the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. He got Astron Tech pole here at Sydney Motorsport Park. He also got race 1 done, and that's Dylan O'Keefe. Hopefully I got Dylan there at the moment. Dylan, what a great weekend so far of racing, albeit in one night. Don't think we got Dylan O'Keefe just yet. We'll see if we can grab Dylan now. Dylan with Astron Tech pole and a race 1 win of round 5 of the Car Sales TCR Australia Sim Racing Series. You must be happy with your night's work. Nope, no one. We got no one there at the moment. Hopefully we'll grab Will Brown very shortly as well. Lockie, your thoughts again. You said it's some of the best racing we've seen, and that's a big statement because we've seen some wonderful races so far.
Yeah, Mount Panorama was good, but I reckon that we just stepped it up a notch. I reckon that as the drivers are getting a bit more confident with the Seto courses software and understanding where the limits are and understanding how closely they can race against one another without making contact and firing each other off the road, I think that the overall standards and the entertainment are improving with every round. As it looks like we do now have Dylan standing by for a chat, Cameron.
Yeah, Lockie, thank you, mate. By the way, before we get to Dylan, to say well done for you. 6 races done so far. We've got 14 to go. We go to Surfers Paradise next, so thank you for your efforts tonight. We will go now to our Astron Tech pole sitter and also race 1 winner in Dylan O'Keefe. Mate, great job at the office. Let's talk about race 1. We'll talk about race 2 shortly. It was really a lights to flag effort, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was exactly what I needed. So I didn't think I had the pace for pole. I was waiting for Junior Bugs to jump up and put a quick one in again, as he usually does, but managed to thankfully get pole. And then, yeah, the race was pretty good. I mean, John and I were obviously quite quick and just doing nice and consistent lap time. So, yeah, nice to get that one. I was just trying not to get distracted because the 14 laps out front is actually quite a long time on the sim. But anyway, got that done. And then, yeah, reverse grid race was definitely interesting. I didn't enjoy the first lap incident, but made it interesting and managed to push on back through to get reasonably good finishing spot. But, yeah, in the first race, I noticed that my tyres were overheating very quickly. Like I did a very quick lap on the first lap, and I was worried at the end the car was sliding all over the joint. So between the 2 races, I just lowered the tyre pressures a lot, and then it meant I was pretty competitive at the end there.
Oh, that was great to see. Well, to stay quickly on that race 1, you mentioned before that it was quite difficult to concentrate throughout that 14 lap race. Well, John Martin, he got as close as 1.5 seconds and he never took his foot off the accelerator. That must have really ramped up the pressure as well.
Yeah, I know. He was a bit relentless in that regard. Same as Bathurst the other week. He was just holding that 1.5 buffer and not letting go. So it's a credit to him. He's definitely improved from when we did the iRacing Championship. And yeah, it's good fun. He's very competitive.
And just to wrap up that point about race 2 tonight, round 6 of our series, can you take us through the incident, how it unfolded for you? We were keeping an eye on the action at the front, so we did miss a bit of that incident. What happened?
Yeah, so from my point of view, what happened was Bug One, I got a really slow start again, and I just went to the outside, which seemed like the smart way to go, and I knew I would have momentum by turn 1 to clear him. And Martin had the same idea, but he was on the inside, and I think what's happened is John's just hit Ben into me, and then I spun, and Ben went off the track, but he didn't spin, so luckily for him, but yeah, it was a little bit annoying, but anyway, in hindsight, I should have backed off, but you're never going to back off.
Now, mate, the series as well, before I leave you this last question, you got a good points haul again tonight. You salvaged a wonderful result in that last race as well. It's looking good for you for the series. Still a long way to go, though.
Yeah, I mean, in the sim racing, you can never be complacent or either in the real world, but yeah, just try and be consistent and quick. So I think especially on the Seto Corsa, it's proving outright pace is great because it's a lot harder to make a mistake compared to other platforms. So I'll just keep doing my thing and then hopefully, yeah, we'll get the championship wrapped up.
Well done. Another win in the Renault, another win for Gary Rogers Motorsport. Great job, Dylan.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, mate. We might now swing across to Will Brown representing Leanne Brown Racing. Hopefully we got Will there as well. Mate, well done for your win on the weekend in Super 2 and well done for your win in race 2 tonight.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I've got you there. Yeah, it was a bit of fun, a bit of bumping and that. So, no, had a lot of fun then.
Well, there was a bit of action going on there. You didn't mind throwing the elbows a few times. It's been quite fun having sim racing as well, but I bet you've enjoyed being able to jump back into the real life race machine as well.
Yeah, it was quite funny. I was actually texting my team, I guess, manager, Sam Stratton, before saying I don't think I can race tonight. I forgot the password to my computer. So I haven't been on the simulator for a little while, and so I couldn't log on, but managed to get through that and download a few updates for tonight and have a bit of fun. I definitely didn't think we'd get a win, that's for sure, but I got a bit of practice in on this track last weekend, obviously.
Yeah, and I was going to say, did you have a massive monumental shunt in practice as well? Did I listen in on that?
Oh, there was definitely a few big shunts in practice. There wasn't just one, let's put it that way.
So, Will, it's been really enjoyable for all of us watching on. We've got viewers from all over the world tuning in as part of the TCR platform as well. As a driver, the crossover for you, you've been able to spend a lot more time on sim racing. Are you feeling more comfortable behind the wheel? I mean, a race win would say yes, but you personally are feeling a bit more comfortable in a sim?
A bit relentless for a bit there. The amount we're on the simulator. So during obviously the Supercars E Series, so we're probably all a little bit over it by the end. But now I've had a few weeks off, and I really enjoyed tonight. It was awesome fun. And I'm really liking the new Assetto Corsa sort of format. I think the TCR car feels a lot more realistic on that, and I can probably relate to it a bit more. So that was good. But yeah, enjoyed getting back on tonight actually.
And last one for you, mate, before I let you go, because I appreciate your time on this one. A little bit of friendly fire between the stablemates. Has Sam Stratton been on the message to you yet about some of the friendly fire between the two HMO customer racing entries?
Oh, he doesn't even drive for us, so I just thought I'd shuffle him a bit wide, you know. No, I'm only joking. He made a bit of a mistake and saw that there was a bit of an opportunity there. Maybe chuck the elbows out a bit, but you got to do that sometimes.
Will, mate, it's always a treat to have a chat to you. Congratulations on your round win, round 6 of the Car Sales TCR Australia and New Zealand Sim Racing Series, mate. Great job. We really appreciate your time.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
Well, that wraps up another wonderful night. Thank you to everybody from all over the world joining us here, whether you're through the TCR Europe platform or you're joining us via any of our streams online. Thank you. Remember to stay tuned into our Facebook, our YouTube feeds, Twitter, Instagram. Join our teams as well. Like whatever there is, because we are ever closer to going back racing in real life and live and free to air on the 7 networks, as well as across their streaming platforms. I'm Cameron Van den Dungen, and on behalf of Lockie Mansell and our entire team, I hope you enjoyed tonight's racing, and stick around. We're off to Surfers Paradise next.